This mathematician names the theorem that for a hexagon inscribed in a conic, opposite sides extensions intersections are collinear. He corresponded with Pierre de Fermat to develop probability theory, although that work is unrelated to a theological wager named for him. He also lends his name to a structure whose rows add up to powers of 2. Binomial coefficients are found in, for 10 points, what French mathematician and philosopher's namesake triangle? And the answer is Blaise Pascal. One theorem named for Thales concerns right angles formed by 3 points on this shape. The construction of one of these shapes tangent to 3 others is the subject of Apollonius's problem. This curve is formed by the perpendicular intersection of a plane with the cone's axis of symmetry, and in polar coordinates it is expressed as r equals a constant. Centered at the origin of a Cartesian plane, its equation is x squared plus y squared equals r squared. For 10 points, name this set of points equidistant from a center. And the answer is circles. This word describes a method of proof that attempts to write every number in binary, then constructs a number that cannot have been represented in that list. That argument shows that the real numbers are uncountable and was advanced by Cantor. This word also refers to square matrices whose only non-zero elements have a row number equal to their column number. For a cube of side length s, the structure by this name has a length of s root 3. Give this word that refers to line segments that connect non-adjacent vertices of a polygon. And the answer is diagonal. Carmichael's theorem states that after the 13th of these numbers, each of these numbers has a prime divisor that does not divide any smaller one of these numbers. That 13th of these numbers, 144, is one of only 3 perfect squares in this sequence, the ratio of whose consecutive terms approaches the golden ratio. Its terms are defined recursively as the sum of the 2 previous terms. An Italian mathematician names, for 10 points, what sequence that begins 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. And the answer is the Fibonacci sequence. In geometries named for this figure, there are multiple lines parallel to a given line through a given non-collinear point. The orbit of unbound comets takes this shape, and the 3-dimensional analogs of this conic section can be of 1 or 2 sheets. Formally defined as the locus of points, the difference of whose distances to 2 foci is a constant and exemplified by the graph of y equals 1 over x. For 10 points, name this conic section with a eccentricity greater than 1 and 2 separate branches. And the answer is hyperbolas. This man found the sum of the squares of the reciprocals of all natural numbers, thus solving the Basel problem to be pi squared over 6. The limiting difference between the natural log function and the harmonic series is a constant named for him and Mascheroni. In 1736, he proved that no path crossed each of the Prego River's 7 bridges in Kongsberg exactly once. Graph theory was essentially invented by, for 10 points, what Swiss mathematician and namesake of a constant about equal to 2.718 called E. And the answer is Leonhard Euler. This function of x is equal to the integral with respect to t from 1 to x of the function 1 over t. This function for a times b equals this function of a plus this function of b, and a similar formula can change division to subtraction. This function was first used in the early 1600s by English mathematician John Napier, and one common technique used when working with these operations is a change of base. The natural type of these uses base e, and the common type uses base 10. Name this operation the inverse of exponentiation. And the answer is logarithms. If one of these structures lacks 0 as an eigenvalue, it is non-singular, and the reduced row echelon form of these entities is computed in Gauss-Jordan elimination. If conformable, they feature non-commutative multiplication, and reflecting one of them over its main diagonal creates its transpose. They are not invertible if and only if their determinant does not equal 0. That calculation is written as A times D minus B times C for the 2x2 type of this construct. For 10 points, name this mathematical construct a rectangular array of elements. And the answer is matrix. Eisenstein's criterion tells if certain types of V's are irreducible over the rational numbers. If they involve only one variable, these objects will have at most n-1 extrema and n-2 inflection points if they are of degree n. 1 over x is not this type of expression, because the exponent on the variable must be a positive integer. For 10 points, name this type of mathematical expression exemplified by quadratics such as x squared plus 3x minus 5. And the answer is polynomials. This function's Taylor series begins x plus 1/3 x cubed plus 2/15 x to the fifth, and its derivative is secant squared. Its Pythagorean identity says that it squared plus 1 equals the secant squared. Like its reciprocal, this function has period pi and equals 1 for an input of 45 degrees. For 10 points, name this trig function equal to sine over cosine, or in a right triangle, the opposite side over the adjacent side. And the answer is tangent.